I'm going to present the slide deck called Adventures with Calorie Deficit to describe my experience with the calorie deficit program at the South Asian Heart Center. Okay, so to start with, I started the program in March of 2022. My personal goals were A1C reduction and weight reduction. I was referred to the program by my primary care physician because I had very high A1C levels at some point. And I also had a personal desire to control the sugar levels with means other than long-term medication. Now, motivation for the slide deck, firstly, these were notes for myself. So these are things that I did not want to forget after I graduated from the program. I also thought it might be useful as advice for people who are skeptical of the calorie deficit method. And then lastly, for medical practitioners, there may be some useful data points in this presentation that they can use for either research or for giving advice to other people. All right. So the agenda is I'll talk about my current status of the weight loss, and then secondly, I'll talk about how I got there. All right. So currently, so prior to starting the program, I had a pretty active exercise routine. I biked for 1 hour most weekends. I did weight training twice a week, occasional walks. My eating was fairly unrestricted. I was trying to eat well by avoiding white bread and pasta, but I didn't have any awareness of calorie intake. I was not measuring that in any way. So for many years, I would say for 10, 15 years, I had a lot of difficulty losing weight. The weight remained around 190 pounds. At its highest, it was probably even higher, maybe closer to 200. And this was despite attempts at dieting and more exercise. And then at some point, I was prescribed medication to reduce sugar levels due to a high A1C result. Now, here are the results. So the program has been great for weight loss. From the beginning of the program, I was around 188. And when I last measured, I'm down to 155 in 9 months. I'm still around that 155 weight. So it's over a 30-pound weight loss in about 9 months. So that's been great. And then also, more importantly, there's been a drastic reduction in A1C. In the beginning of the program, I was still on this metformin medication, which is commonly prescribed to reduce sugar levels. During the program, I thought I would see if I could stop the medication and see how things go. So about late last year, I actually stopped it, and I continued to lose weight. So the final A1C result is, so the A1C starting, it was, at its high point, the A1C was 8. And then when I stopped the program, it was down to 5.6. And the great news is that that's without medication. And according to the doctors, it's below what's considered diabetic range. It's much more in the normal range. So that's actually good news. All right. So here's what I did to get there. I did a lot of calorie and weight tracking. So I tracked all food via MyFitnessPal. And I tracked weight every day at the same time in the morning. In terms of meals, breakfast was the easiest to track. I eat mostly the same thing every morning. Lunch was easy when eating at home. So typically my work schedule is I eat lunch at home and go into the office in the afternoons. I ate mostly the same lunch most days to track. I sometimes needed to enter new recipes because we were eating with the family. And restaurants, that was a challenge. I'll talk about that later, but accurate tracking of restaurant food was either difficult or impossible. And I also classified some foods as helpful versus unhelpful. Because I was doing the calorie and weight tracking, I began to notice the effect of foods on weight. What I'm calling helpful foods are foods that help with weight loss. And this I noticed often after several days of consistently eating these foods. It wasn't immediate, it was kind of a delayed effect. Unhelpful foods are foods that cause weight gain. In general, it was very hard to identify the culprits, exactly like what food you ate, which led to the weight gain. But it was a bit easier because I was eating a consistent diet, and when I only changed one food item, I could pinpoint it. And the interesting thing about weight gain is that I often noticed that immediately. While the weight loss took several days or even a week to be noticed, the weight gain was much more immediate. All right. So the general guideline for meals was that no or little added sugar is possible. There's no sugar in coffee or sugary coffee drinks. I skip dessert if possible. Few carbohydrates as possible, especially during the evening meal. And then I followed this 50% veggies, 25% carb, 25% protein rule that they taught us in the class as much as possible. So for breakfast, these are helpful. So this is what I typically eat, and this led to weight loss. So coffee, always plain, no milk or sugar. A scrambled egg cooked with olive oil, smoked salmon, cheddar cheese cubes, muesli with 2% milk. Muesli is a type of like cereal, and it's important to pick a brand with no or little added sugar. I ate a ton of fruit, so bananas, apples, mandarin oranges. I ate a lot of peanut butter, and this is the fresh brown kind with no salt or sugar. It's actually cheaper than most jarred peanut butter. You can get it at the back of the store. And I also had non-fat Greek yogurt, and I added a little jam for sweetness with that. Okay. For breakfast foods, there are also substitutions. Hold on, I think, okay. There are substitutions that I made. Basically, these are foods which worked at some point, but then stopped working. So like I used to eat pastries like croissants and muffins, and then those I just stopped eating. I used to eat a lot of cereal and granola, and then I replaced that with cereal with no added sugar, which is like muesli. I used to eat a lot of breakfast sausage, and I replaced that with smoked salmon and cheese. I used to drink a lot of fruit juice, and then I replaced that with whole fruit because fruit juice is way too sweet. So I added a lot more fruit, non-fat Greek yogurt, and peanut butter. Right. Lunch, the foods which helped were I ate a lot of tuna salad. The brand that I like is called this Natural Catch albacore and water. It's available only through mail order, but it tastes much better than most in-store cans. I made a tuna salad with tomatoes, red onions, and hot pepper, also using olive oil-based dressing. I ate like whole grain or wheat bread with that. Then there's a green salad with shaved cheese and salad dressing. And the salad dressing, it's important to measure 2 teaspoons of servings. If I was still hungry, I'd have these frozen beef meatballs, then maybe some Greek yogurt and fruit and apple and bananas with peanut butter. So this is what I ate consistently at lunch. That helped. For substitutions, I used to eat lots of chicken cutlets and cold cuts. I replaced those with tuna. I used to make tuna salad with lots of mayo. Then I replaced it with olive oil, where I measured the olive oil very precisely. Then I used to have large slices of wheat bread. Then I replaced those with 1.5 to 2 ounce pieces of wheat bread. Like I said, I wasn't measuring the salad dressing. Now I measure it very carefully, only 2 teaspoons. I also used to have a lot of white bread, and then I just stopped that completely. With dinner, the helpful foods are salmon, whitefish, or chicken breast. Those are prepared with light oil-based sauces. Lean beef occasionally, wheat or whole grain bread, green salad with salad dressing, and various sauteed vegetables. Dinner was a bit harder because we had a lot more variety I was eating with the family. So this is, I think, one of the harder meals to prepare and track. The substitutions we made was we used to eat a lot of sausage and lamb. I replaced that with fish. We had various forms of bread, but then I replaced that with a smaller amount of wheat or whole grain bread. The deep fried or breaded veggies or meats, we just stopped that. I also used to have this habit of having a glass of red wine or just a half a glass of beer with with certain dinner, and I just stopped that. So I just cut out alcohol altogether. I did like to eat dessert, and so some of the helpful dessert foods were like berries with whipped cream. So whipped cream is only 20 calories per serving, and it feels satisfying, so that went okay with weight loss. My go-to dessert was actually bananas or apple with peanut butter. It's not really a dessert, but there is a lot of sugar in the apples and bananas, so it is quite satisfying. Somewhat helpful options are you can have a small piece of dark chocolate, under 50 calories, that's okay. For special occasions, I had hot chocolate with 2% milk, and I aimed to have like a really small shot, like usually between 2 to 3 ounces, so that would be under 100 calories. And that was actually okay, because the milk wasn't so bad. You were only getting calories from the chocolate powder. The substitutions were, I used to have large pieces of dark chocolate, so now I measured them. I used to have sweetened nuts. Now I completely replaced that with unsweetened nuts. The foods that were remarkably unhelpful are ice cream, cookies, chocolate with sweet filling, fruit pies. In my experience, there's no way, if you're interested in losing weight, there's just no way to have those foods and continue to lose weight. So I just noticed an immediate weight gain anytime I had even a little bit of those foods on the bottom. Okay. For snacks, the helpful foods are roasted cashews, about like 50 calories worth. This is my go-to snack for in between meals. There's a brand of nut bar that is made, the brand is called Kind. So these are a little sweet, but they're mostly nuts, and they sell them in like these small 100-calorie portions, but they're very low sugar. So those worked. Fruit and berries with peanut butter and jam, so that worked. Greek yogurt and jam was a good snack too, because the jam was helpful when you needed something sweet. It tasted good when mixed with the Greek yogurt, but only look for jam with little or no added sugar. So that was a pretty good snack. Okay. The substitutions I made was like, I used to have lots of granola bars or breakfast bars, so those are gone. I only have plain nuts or Kind bars. Most granola bars, despite being advertised as healthy, have way too much sugar, so I would just tend to avoid those. Replace sweetened nuts with plain nuts. I also used to drink lots of Gatorade, but then I replaced that with either electrolyte water or just a far less Gatorade. Gatorade is actually packed with sugar, so it is helpful after a workout, but just watch the sugar content with Gatorade. With exercise, the habits which helped are, I take a 20 to 30-minute walk every morning after breakfast, so that helped build an appetite for lunch. When possible, I do bike riding on the weekend, about an hour, and they burn a lot of fat. I also like to do weight training twice a week. That also increased metabolism. Some other lessons learned about exercise is that repeated, small, consistent exercises are better, in my experience, than less frequent, intense exercises from a weight loss perspective. I mean, intense exercise may have other benefits, but I'm just talking about losing weight. And one example is there was a period of time where I skipped doing the heavy exercise like weight training and bike riding due to a mild injury, but I just continued doing mild exercises like walking, and I still continued to lose weight. And then the other thing I found was that too much exercise can backfire. Occasionally, if I would bike ride too much or weight lift too much, that would lead to exhaustion. Then that would cause a huge appetite and calorie intake. So it would actually kind of work against the weight gain, because I would end up eating way more calories than I burned. So just watch out for that when you're exercising. Right. The challenges are in terms of restaurant food, both dine-in and takeout were completely unhelpful in the calorie deficit efforts. The portion sizes are often more than 1,000 calories, and the sauces have high fat and salt content. So the best bet was to get grilled food and sautéed vegetables. But restaurant food was a challenge. Most of my weight, a lot of times I would, doing this method, I would do well in terms of calorie deficit when eating home, but then on the weekend when we ate out, I noticed some weight gain because we went to a restaurant and there was just no way to get a healthy option. When we were traveling, that was a challenge. Like, for example, going to Southern California on I-5, there are like very few decent places to eat that are also healthy. Food that's compatible with family, because the family might want to eat sweets or other things which are not compatible with your weight loss, so that was a challenge. And then tracking everything you eat is also a challenge. The drawbacks is it's kind of tiresome, especially when you're hungry and want to eat. But the benefits are that you're aware. And then personally, when I didn't track, I tended to eat oversized portions. So the tracking helps me eat the right size portion. So there are benefits and drawbacks to tracking, but it is challenging to do consistently. Okay, so in conclusion, the biggest conclusion in my mind was that you can lose weight without medication. So if you consistently adhere to the calorie deficit, so I had a more than 30-pound weight loss. I'm currently maintaining that weight with no medication. The exercise does help weight loss, but it's not nearly as critical as the diet. So the diet is much more important than exercise. That was my learning from this experience. The other good news is that sugar cravings subside over time. Before I started the program, after dinner, I had a lot of cravings for things like chocolate and sweets. But now I find that it's easier to turn down unhealthy foods after you make some progress in the calorie deficit. So it does get easier over time. And then finally, a huge thanks to the South Asian Heart Center. This is by far the single most impactful improvement to my health that I've ever made in my lifetime. So yeah, so thanks. Yep, so that's, I think,